Okay, we're on.
Good evening and welcome to Flight Jungle Chasers 1. We're going to call it for tonight WX1 Weather 1. The flight tonight is going to take you from southwest Missouri, where the drought continues, across the continental United States and over to Great Britain to check out the weather scene. And then the flight will return back to the Midwest to central Iowa to do a follow up on the Derecho. I'm your navigator, Patty. My call sign is KD0AEL. Welcome aboard. Buckle up, kick back in your seat, and enjoy the flight. With me tonight, we'll start off with Franklin. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Franklin, KD0RSJ. I am the Greene County Skywarn Coordinator, and I assist with the Southwest Missouri Regional Skywarn, as well as I will be watching the chat room. So if you have any questions or any comments for the live stream, please do post them there, and we'll bring them up.
All right, so my next.
You are.
My name's Rodney. My call sign is K0FZ. I work with Greene County Skywarn as well as the regional Skywarn, and I really considered a secondary as far as net control is concerned. I help where I can, but I'm just that weather nerd that always wants to try to learn more and share with who I can, and if we can be of any benefit. So, thanks for having me this weekend or this week.
Almost weekend.
I was going
Oh,
to say,
no.
you're thinking a little bit far ahead there, aren't you?
Oh, I'm trying.
He's being optimistic.
I've been off.
No,
so
he
I'm
just
all
wants
messed
it to be the weekend.
I am Steve. I am the
Pilot.
producer and the guy that makes everybody go, "Why do these people keep doing this show?" We won't go away.
Not
And
without a fight, that is.
anyway, I'm KA0SPM. I'm that. I'm the evil producer. So over to you, Kieran.
My name's Kieran. I'll be the resident police officer for today. Don't really know what else to say other than that.
Oh, I feel a rant.
Obviously, I don't have a call sign like you guys do, so
Early
Oh,
rant?
KCOP. Cop.
yeah.
Ah,
All right.
MC0P because he's in Britain.
That's
Oh.
right.
GZ0P.
Right.
yes. You got to follow the prefix rules there.
Oh yes.
Steve, if you would share my page.
Your page.
Yeah, my link I sent you.
Yep. That one.
That one! Yay!
Woohoo!
So, unfortunately for southwest Missouri and much of the western United States, west of the Mississippi, um, the drought weather continues. The map I have up here is of Missouri, and as you can see, we do have almost looks like a dinosaur head of red. That is extreme drought for portions of southwest Missouri, and that does not look to improve anytime soon. We will talk a little bit about our weather prediction from NOAA here in a bit for winter, but our outlook is glum. I guess is the word I'm hunting for. Fire weather is extremely high. We've already had several red flag warnings, and red flag warnings are no burning in the Ozarks. We have leaves now falling. The grass is dead. And so there's a lot of tinder out there. Noticed a fire was started from someone using a chainsaw.
Ooh.
Anything that can create a spark can set this off. So farmers who might be welding, driving their trucks across field in tall, dry grass, your muffler can actually catch that on fire.
Yeah.
It's pretty dangerous right now in our area.
Back when
Um,
we had all of the drought over here in the UK, when we had that hot spell, we had a patrol car that pulled someone over on the motorway, the highways you use, um, and they pulled off into the grass area, and the car that the guy was chasing actually caught fire due to
oh,
Oh,
the muffler catching the grass on fire underneath.
wow. It's
yeah, it
something
can
you don't think
happen.
about. You hear about, people flipping their cigarette butts out, which that is a no-no. As I demonstrated last week, even in the new cars that don't have ashtrays, you can get for just like between $5 and $10 a little cup that is an ashtray to keep in your car if you have to smoke and not vape. But never in these conditions. I say never, period. Throw your cigarette butts out
No.
anyway. Um, but you don't hear about. I had a cousin that was welding on a gate that caught a fire that almost burned their house down a couple of years ago when we were under drought. So just be mindful right now. Anything that you do, if you're camping, make sure to build a fire pit in uh, an area with lots of rocks to secure that fire. If you can, put a grate over it so that you don't have a lot of sparks flying. And always make sure that fire is out doubly secure with water and stir it. Make sure there's no embers left uh, unattended. And moving on, our own National Weather Service here in Springfield. Come on, computer. Uh, the elevated fire conditions will go into the weekend. Low afternoon humidity, gusty winds, and dry conditions. Under this setup, fires can spread rapidly. Outside burning is discouraged, except by experienced fire personnel, and I think they would even hesitate. Don't burn your trash or yard waste, and again, don't throw out the cigarettes. Um, on top of that, here comes the first widespread frost of the season. Some areas may actually have their first hard freeze, which will kill plants. Um, so this does cover all of our watch warn area for Southwest Missouri and Southeast Kansas, and um, fall continues. Don't you love the 60s and
Yay!
70s?
Oh
Yay!
yes.
But get those tender plants in because they are in danger. My dear one actually helped me to bring ours in, and uh, so they're tucked away in here where it's warm. Um, so I brought this one up. It's another photo. It shows extended out from us how widespread the drought is here in the Midwest. A little bit anyway. Um, Pond and river levels are declining. Trees are stressed. Insect populations do decrease under these conditions. I don't miss the mosquitoes, but it is a concern for some of the other insects.
Mhm.
Um, Water levels are dropping. Grass and leaves are changing, not necessarily because of the colder temperatures, but because of the drought stress.
Lack of
Um,
water.
yeah, yeah, our trees are really suffering. So yeah, I'm going to hold on that one. The frost freeze headlines for tonight. Um, so we are under a frost advisory, but to our east, over toward south of St. Louis, down I-55, between roughly Highway 63 and on over into Kentucky and Illinois, they are under a freeze warning. So those are some areas that have lots of hills, so lots of low-lying areas that will have a hard freeze
That would
tonight.
be the
That
mountains of Missouri.
the mountains of Missouri. I used to live
We
there.
have
They're beautiful.
mountains.
We have mountains. I'll have to take you. Um, it's gorgeous, but I tell you what, driving a 24-foot U-Haul, pulling a car, um, they
Yeah,
don't
that
like
would
it.
be fun.
They don't like it.
Nope.
But for those areas highlighted in that darker color, that's the end of the growing season. We're not yet there here, other than the drought. Our growing season basically stopped in July, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Our farmers are hurting. And let's move on. Continental United States. This is the forecast fire danger. You'll notice that our northeastern states have had rain. They're still getting some rain. There's a little bit coming on to the coast up in the northwest. The rest of this, from the Mississippi River to the west, is in some sort of fire danger. Other than Steve made note that his parents are getting too much rain up here in Iowa, um, and some portions of Nebraska. There's Iowa. There's Nebraska. Kansas, the fire danger is kind of split in the state. The eastern portion is very dry. California and Colorado and portions of Arizona all still have fires going. We're not hearing about them in the news, but they are there and they're raging. The fire north of Denver actually had a smoke plume that was seen across Omaha yesterday. So they're not out of the woods by any means. And there's an offshore flow that is keeping the heat on in Southern California, where they are seeing temperatures like they don't usually. It's usually quite moderate there and stays that way year round. They're having very hot temperatures. So I've got a
See,
cousin that's sweltering a bit. And they
I was
don't tend to have air conditioners in their cars either because of where they're at. So
I was wondering, is the reason that the fires are not as prevalent in the news right now, is it because they've been going for a while and maybe kind of a little bit of maybe fire fatigue, or is it because even though they may still be going pretty good, do they kind of have them more or less contained?
I I think honestly it's because all the news has kind of focused on the upcoming election as we get
Gotcha.
closer.
And that's taken a back seat.
Exactly. I don't think it should. I think people should be
No, it
aware.
shouldn't.
And sadly, so much of this could have been avoided had they maintained their forests according to forestry procedures that are tried and true.
And
Um,
some of those include burning off some portions in controlled manners, but
and it doesn't necessarily, if you do that in a controlled fashion under the right conditions, it doesn't kill the big trees,
no,
but it allows for new growth. Some of
it
those
does.
trees require fire for their seeds to take root, but it
Exactly.
also kills the underbrush
Mhm.
and allows the trees to have more of the nutrients and the water from the soil.
Yeah.
Uh, so one more here. Uh, so we had the Great American Shakeout today. And I know I slept through it. Unfortunately, I had an alarm set and I absolutely missed it. But what they want people to do for the shakeout is to participate, to practice, and be ready uh, should an earthquake occur. And we were talking just prior to the broadcast that there are actually 20 faults just in Greene County. They do not know just how much that this area would be affected if New Madrid fault went off. But um, I can tell you from what I've read that and this page is great. It's a little late to register, but you can still get lots of great information there if you want to be prepared.
Hmm.
Um, Back in 1812, when is that right? 1812.
That sounds
When
about right.
New Madrid did go off, it was months. It wasn't just one big event. There's always clusters of earthquakes around a big one.
And then there's aftershocks and
Exactly,
so on and so
exactly.
forth.
That's what I'm talking about. Um, that um, Back here in the Ozarks, it opened sinkholes.
Hmm.
There were reports of that. So
Well, wasn't it in Boston was where the vibrations actually still was strong enough that it rang church bells?
I heard that.
yeah,
Yep.
I heard
Yep.
that. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Um, and they've said for years um, that, and I'm looking for something very specific, and I think I actually killed the link.
Mm.
Oh no, here it is. Um, Reelfoot Lake, they said, was in Tennessee, was made by the river running backwards. Well, it didn't actually run backwards, uh, but because of the severity of quake, it appeared to those people that were out there that it did.
Hmm.
It did change the course of the river.
Yeah.
Where Reelfoot sits is where the Mississippi River used to be, and it made a huge jump in where it was at.
Yeah. Isn't there a like a lake or two also in the Boot Heel of Missouri that was kind of the same thing? It kind of got formed because the river used to flow through there, and it kind of got shifted a little bit.
Potentially, I hadn't heard that, but potentially, yes.
Maybe I'm mixing that up with the one that you were talking about, but that's kind of down around that same region, though.
Well, New Madrid is in the Boot Heel, so
Yeah.
um, and that was the near the epicenter, so that's why they call it the New Madrid Fault. Um,
If you're
so
looking for it on a map and you're not from around here, it looks like New Madrid.
It does.
So,
it does,
you know,
it does.
so even way back in 1811, 1812, they were talking wrong then too.
Yeah. We've got New
Wrong depends
Madrid.
on where you're from.
We've got New Madrid instead of New Madrid. We've got Nevada instead of Nevada, and we've got Versailles instead of Versailles.
Yeah. Oh, don't forget Japan.
Yeah. And then in the middle
Oh.
of it all is Cuba, and every time I go by, I have to wave to Fidel.
I could list off a whole bunch, and I just cringe sometimes when the warnings get read off. But anyway, uh,
It's
I can
trying
quite imagine.
sometimes.
even here we have trouble with our own dialect. It's
Mhm.
funny. So what's to do in an earthquake if you haven't participated in a drill? If possible, drop to the ground, cover yourself. They say get under a heavy object. I've actually read documentation where it's better to get alongside of that heavy object. That way, if a ceiling joist falls or something, it doesn't crush that object down on you, but it can actually serve to create a pocket for you to be in. In some of the apartment complexes where people have gotten down beside a desk or some other heavy object, they've actually been able to find them in these pockets that are formed by ceilings falling down, and then it's an angle off of that object for the pocket. When using a cane, same thing. Drop, cover, hold on. Might not be that easy, but you're going to fall anyway if it's shaken hard enough. Using a walker, lock it. Try to use it for your support. Wheelchair, lock it, cover your head, hold on. Um, I had never seen this before. I thought it was great because we do need to address those persons with disabilities who are sitting there going, "What do I do?"
Yep. Most people probably wouldn't think about that, and I'm not even for sure even some people who are in that kind of position that would be wheelchair bound or who need a walker to walk would think of, well, what do I do in an earthquake if I'm in this situation?
Right. And if you notice the person with the cane, they've slid their hand down on the cane to continue to use it for support as they go to the ground, which is a great
That's
idea. Yeah. Yeah. So, uh, and I think that's all I had.
cool.
Good. So, this is the continental United States. What we're seeing right now, red flag warnings continue out in California, portions of Nevada, Colorado. I've not up into Utah yet. Um, fire weather watches all the way down into New Mexico and Texas. Um, and then we have the freeze warnings that go all the way up in this area, cover a good portion of the state of Illinois, a good portion of the state of Iowa, um, Illinois, the Upper Peninsula is even involved in this. And there's our rain, folks. It just won't come here.
I mean, if I could, I would send you some of ours, but you know.
We could certainly
That'd be
use
nice.
it. We could certainly use it.
You could come over and collect it.
Well, I
Would
think
have a problem with it.
I think we got enough sprinkles that might have, last night equated to like maybe 2 good sized spits, and that was it.
On
Sure
the
that
other hand,
wouldn't
we've
hurt.
got enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool 20 times over.
So it looks like portions of the Appalachian Trail are also under a frost advisory. Um, and more rain continuing as we go into the southeastern states. Lucky folks.
Funny quick story about dialects and Appalachian. I had a teacher at Hillcrest who taught American Civil Wars class. She was originally from, I think it was South Carolina. It was either South Carolina or North Carolina. She pronounced Appalachian Appalachian. We had fun with that in class.
And people that live out there do say that.
Like when
They
people
do.
call things ambulance.
Ambulance.
Well, what was funny, we just like, Mrs. Piston, can you say Appalachian? And she'd be like, Appalachian.
Well, Patty,
How
if
would you
you've
pronounce that one?
I can't see it.
It's not a via.
Villa. It's just
One
I've
more.
heard it enough times.
Poncho Avia.
Here we go. Here's 2 that really trip people up.
I think one looks like, is it Desquin?
Duquesne.
Duquesne.
Duquesne. Oh,
Duquesne.
is that
the other
how
one-
it's pronounced?
Duquesne, yes, and Dunaweg.
Yeah, Dunawig I've heard many times.
Yeah, but
Uh,
that's Duquesne.
Duquesne throws me every time.
Well, speaking of the land where we don't necessarily know how it's pronounced,
That's a good segue.
Ah,
so the good news in the United Kingdom today, and it would be early morning, 3:53. There are no weather warnings at the moment, and it doesn't appear that there'll be any for the remainder of the week. And it does not appear that there's a whole lot of rain. Kieran, can you verify that it is not raining where you are?
It stopped about an hour ago.
Stopped about an hour ago, okay. So that would be the
It's not supposed to be raining over here throughout the weekend, and then Monday it's supposed to rain all the way through the week, and there's just not a sign of it stopping.
I'll put that radar in motion, and we can see what you're in for. Um, I've noticed that your temperatures have taken a bit of a dive, and
Yes.
that would be. I got to go back. I need. And I did convert my view of the Met's webpage to Fahrenheit as opposed to Celsius. So those are actual Fahrenheit temperatures. And I'm seeing pretty fall-like temperatures there. Have they? Has the temperatures dropped off quite a bit there as they have here, Kieran?
Oh yes, it's absolutely freezing. When you go out, you put multiple coats on.
So now, if that's early morning temperatures, that's not bad. That would mean it's warmer in the day. So we'll put that in motion and see what we're in for. And of course, that's kind of small. So I can live with the idea that you're. No, you're not getting very warm temperatures. You're going to have to come here, Kieran, if you want the 60s.
That's very tempting. If we weren't back in lockdown, that would be very tempting.
And see, you all chuckle about coming here if he wants the 60s. I'm like thinking, at least if we're not going below about 40, I kind of would like that.
And
I just you got the picture of what the weather's supposed to be doing over here.
it appears that if you were off the coast, you would be warmer. So, how has the flooding been? Has it kind of subsided since the last time we talked?
It's better. It's better. It's started to go down now, but the rain that we've been having the past couple of days has, sort of stopped. It's not got any worse. It has got a little bit better, but
That's good.
I think the rain next week is going to bring it back to where it was, though.
Let's see, 6 degrees Celsius, 42 Fahrenheit. I could do that.
From the looks, really the
Well, the
Highlands
rain-
in Scotland and the Midlands are where it's the coldest. You guys don't seem to get a change over nighttime versus daytime temperatures that much. Not like we do.
No, it varies probably between normally about 4 or 5 degrees maximum.
So it's pretty consistent night and day. You get more of a wide swing, maybe with like a weather system that comes through, or the changing of the seasons.
Well, there was even some times last year where it was actually warmer during the night than it was during the day.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We had one day like that. The cold front came through during the night, during the early morning, and our high was like around midnight. So,
Or we've had some instances like in the winter where it'll be, really warm-ish overnight and into the morning, and then we'll have like a front that goes through, and the temperatures just bottom out, and so our actual morning low is actually higher than the afternoon high.
Yeah.
So this is a website called windy.com, and I'm displaying temperatures. What you would consider yellow is 70 degrees. Now, what's going on here is that a lot of the weather in the United Kingdom and Europe is driven by these progressive cells that move across the North Atlantic. You can see one here, and I'll get it back to the wind, where you can actually see the wind speed, and that purple is about 45 miles per hour winds. That
Oh,
potentially is the remnants of Delta.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And so you can kind of track, because I'm looking at, here's the eastern seaboard of the United States over on the edge, and then the United Kingdom and Europe. This stuff all just kind of it kind of slides around and moves into that. But I've got it in motion. This is the next day or so. Um, Not only are there hurricanes, but obviously this big circulation that's coming in, it's higher winds. If I do that with temperature, we will put that back in motion. The real cool thing about this site is if you want to know where the hottest place in the world is, you can find it. But I don't know. It looks to me, it looks a little bit strange because the water is much warmer than the earth there.
I know. I wish that could just shift you up a little bit.
You guys will see a bit of a warming trend, but not a lot.
All of next week just seems to be rain, rain, rain. Oh yeah, more rain. We've got a high of next week of 13. Ooh.
This does a really good job on this site showing all of the radars anywhere. And if you put that in motion, it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. But I'm going to tell you that, Karen, if you want warm and you don't want to come all the way to the States, the solution is
Spain
Spain.
South of France.
certainly ain't going to be Scotland.
We go back to now.
I'm thinking, maybe the French Mediterranean coastline.
If he says Scotland now, I'm going to call lies.
Mauritania.
I'm thinking not too far from Nice, or some people pronounce it nice.
The temperatures in Mauritania are exceeding 100, so that's the place to be. That's the hot spot in the world. Even Australia can't beat it. Generally, the center of Australia, you'll read at 107, 108. There's times when Saudi Arabia's got the record temperature, but today, Mauritania, that's the place to be if you like it hot.
See,
Right.
I would like it in between here and there. That would be a sweet spot.
See, you were disparaging of a high of 13 degrees Celsius. I converted that. That's 55. Kid you not. Steve can verify and vouch. I would probably freaking love 55.
So
Yes.
I've discovered something about 55 Fahrenheit.
Mhm.
That is my absolute limit of barefoot outside,
Ha!
especially if there's dew on. And for folks who know me, I rarely put socks on unless I'm going to work and I'm dressed up. When I'm home, it's barefoot,
Yeah.
unless I'm in the mud or the dirt or whatever, working. But every chance I get, my feet are bare and on the ground. And yeah, 55 is my absolute limit barefoot.
So
Like the
56.
grounded.
See, I used to be like that up until I got stung by a bee on my foot. I can't remember if it was on a toe or if it was kind of in between two toes. So,
That's-
like, in the house, perfectly fine being barefooted, or like if I'm on like on the porch or something like that before we moved. But if I'm getting out in the grass, I gotta have shoes and socks on now.
So
Steve,
not to disparage the Australians, but that place they even talk stranger than we all do. Um,
Crikey!
yeah,
hey, maybe.
Fitzroy Crossing at 102.
Ooh,
That's hot,
no.
and I'm guessing that's probably midday temperatures.
Frankie needs to be inside at that point.
I've seen
They're
107
going
at
into
Alice
the
Springs.
spring. This is their spring weather.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was reading a travel book one time about Australia, and I didn't think about it. They said, particularly the interior of the country, is not uncommon for residents or even, like hotels and stuff to have industrial strength air conditioning just because they need it to handle the heat and the humidity that they have.
Well,
So, Steve, when you're done with your little travel, I have one more thing to share that I just came across.
Your page.
Yeah,
Okay.
just whenever you're ready.
Go ahead.
This is your flight attendant speaking.
Yeah,
Our
this is
pilot
your navigator. Your
has
navigator
noticed a
taking
new
a
point
little-
of interest, so we'll be making a flight correction.
We are diverting back to the United States, where we're
I
going
wish
to.
flight travel was this quick.
Where this was just released today. Don't expect much winter this year. For those of us who love the snow, unfortunately, the long-term outlook does look like drought. Um, 2/3 of the United States should be warmer than usual, according to NOAA. Only Washington, northern Idaho, Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota will be colder. And winter rain and snow splits the nation in 3 stripes. And I'm going to use that to segue into the video that they did. But I just saw this post and it's distressing because if this goes like I have seen it is predicted to, it's going to be February, maybe March before we see significant moisture again. And
Oh, good.
yeah, those places that depend on the snow thaw may also be affected.
Yeah,
So,
because a lot of people don't realize, I didn't realize until a few years ago, the majority of the nitrogen that we get in the soil for like spring planting and growing season and everything comes from melted snow. And if we don't get very much this winter, there's not going to be a lot of nitrogen in the soil.
melted snow and lightning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we haven't had the storms.
Mhm.
Cue video.
Which one are we doing?
Noah,
The winter outlook.
National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association has come out with their winter outlook. And because it's a government website, we can share this in its entirety.
Woohoo.
On October 15th, NOAA issued its December through February outlooks for temperature, precipitation, and drought. A steady decrease in sea surface temperature signaled the development of La Nina during August. This pattern of cooler ocean temperature in the Central Pacific is expected to continue and will likely influence winter temperature and precipitation. Above average temperatures are favored in the southern 2/3 of the nation, the Northeast, portions of Alaska, and Hawaii. Below average temperatures are most likely across the northern plains, the Pacific Northwest, and parts of Alaska. For every location, there exists the possibility of below, near, or above average conditions. The maps display the most likely category with higher probabilities indicating greater confidence. Our forecast favors below normal precipitation in southern Alaska and across the southern half of the nation. Above average precipitation is favored across much of the north, including the Ohio River Valley, the Great Lakes, the Pacific Northwest, western Alaska, and in Hawaii. Both outlooks have parts of the country labeled EC for equal chances, which means there's no tilt in the odds toward any outcome. Drought currently dominates the western half of the U.S. and parts of the Northeast. Improvement is expected there, in the Pacific Northwest, and in Hawaii. Elsewhere, drought is expected to persist, with drought development anticipated in California, the central and southern plains, and in the southeast. Stay tuned to NOAA to be weather ready and climate smart through the winter months.
And as we segue our flight from just a general flight over the continental United States, we're going to divert to central Iowa for a follow-up on the Derecho and the crop damage and assessments that have followed. And cue the pilot who will take over this navigation.
Okay, well, because of the nature of what took place up in Iowa, and it is a past event. And for those who do not know, there was a storm, as indicated by the radar shown in the little box there, that took place. It's some call them a bow echo. This was called a derecho. It moved from South Dakota and Nebraska all the way towards Indiana. It covered 770 miles, I think. With winds exceeding 110 miles per hour, there were reports of hail that exceeded 2 to 3 inches in diameter. This is in a time of year when much of the crops that are grown for food in Iowa are at that kind of delicate stage where they're growing, they're filling the kernels of corn, and soybeans are being, their seeds are developing, and so it probably couldn't have come at a worse time. The estimates, and you hear a lot of stuff in the news, and it's always great to do a news story that says 50% more lost than they reported. Well, that doesn't mean much really to us because that sells newspapers. It doesn't tell us any information. But the fact is that Iowa lost right around 550,000 acres of crop, not necessarily just corn. Soybeans were affected to a certain degree. 57% or 57 million bushels of what they call permanently licensed grain storage. And picture that's shown here is big, by the size of it, it's quite likely a grain dealer. It's not a private farmer's storage. So what typically happens up there is if you don't have on-farm storage, you're kind of at the mercy of either sending that grain to an elevator for storage or you sell it on site, which neither one of those two options is a great one because it costs money to store by the bushel, and it also, you don't get as much out of your crop selling it during harvest as you do by holding it for a few months until I remember my dad talking about selling corn on open navigation, which meant it went to one of the big elevators on the Mississippi River, and as soon as the boats could move, that's when they would sell it. So the large barges that run up and down the Mississippi, that was a significant day when the ice went out and they could get stuff moving. They didn't really have a number for on-farm storage, mainly because it's not a licensed product. It's kind of one of those things where guys have a grain bin. Yeah, he may have gotten insurance to replace it, but they didn't really keep numbers on it. 57 Iowa counties were affected, and 8.2 million acres of corn and 5.6 million acres of soybeans were affected.
That's a little
So
over half of the counties, isn't it?
the 99, yeah, a little over half, 99 counties in Iowa. Um, a large percentage of that was based in the losses were based on insurance claims. One of the companies I follow near Newton, Iowa, does they specialize in federal crop insurance, and yeah, they're just outside of Des Moines, so they're kind of right in the middle of all of everything in Iowa, and that's a large portion of where these numbers come from. Is where did the insurance claims come from? So um, it's kind of and I told Patty I was going to say this. When you're a farmer, uh, it's kind of an exercise in what can you get used to. And you can get used to about anything if you're a farmer. And I'm sure police officers probably share that same thing. As it's pretty shocking when you get into it, but once you do it a while, it's like, oh yeah, I'm okay. That's normal. But a lot of the guys were faced with a choice. You can declare the crop a total loss and destroy it. In other words, you don't get any benefit from it. You can only do what would benefit you next year. And that was, for a lot of them, just plowing it under. They went in with discs and they chopped up the stalks and left it lay where it was, under the understanding that they don't get any benefit from that crop. However, they're going to get benefit through an insurance payment. And but then there's the old tough guy out there that says, you know what, dadgummit, I can combine that stuff. I can make it work. And it is kind of crazy. Now this is a little bit different from a normal harvest situation. And we don't need to hear the sounds. It's just a John Deere combine header and a seed corn harvester. The seed corn dealers in Iowa, which I got to show Patty one of the big Pioneer plants up there just north of Ottumwa, they harvest a lot earlier than the regular guys do, and they harvest it on the ear. This is what happened to a lot of their seed corn plots, is they just got flattened, absolutely flattened. And they're making so much more on this stuff, and it's so valuable in the fact that this is what they're going to plant next year in their fields. It's worth going out and spending the time working on this to get the ears picked up. Now, if you notice, that was very green. That's not a normal look for harvesting corn. This is a bit more like what it really looks like. And I had to play this video for because there's not just green combines out there. And if you're on a farm in Iowa, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
So the ones that had to combine it green, is that an issue with drying it for seed production, or?
Yes, exactly. And because they harvest it greener, generally they were doing it earlier than they normally do, under the idea that they have a harvester that actually clips the ears off with a lot more gently than the machine you see running now. This machine's made to harvest a drier crop, which the ears are hard. I mean, if somebody throws one at you, it hurts. It's a big, heavy, hard thing. Whereas those seed corn guys were harvesting it a little bit softer, a little bit more water in it. But their machine's designed to do that, and they can afford to dry it on the ear in the facility where they process the seed corn. This is just a guy. In fact, I want to give credit to One Crazy Nordlander. That's the site that he's on. I'll try to get a list of all of these videos that I've played to give these are real Iowa farmers that made these videos, and you can kind of see this is one of those guys that said, yeah, it's not too bad, I can make it work, but a lot of the crops were broken off at the base. There was no saving it. It's just absolutely not going to happen. Um, I can remember little bits and pieces of farmland having some of this happen, and my old man was not happy about it because it is a great big pain in the rear end to harvest it, and you lose a lot because they're not standing upright, and there's just a lot of problems with it. But um,
Dairy farmers wouldn't mind too much because it's still silage, but this is not that.
Right. Well, even the silage guys couldn't pick up the really down stuff. They couldn't do it. So, I don't know what an insurance
Silage
agent
is
how they
dairy
would
cattle
speak.
feed, by the way.
Say again.
I was saying silage is dairy cattle feed, by the way.
Right.
Those that don't know. They harvest the corn and they just chop up everything and feed it to the cows, and they call it silage.
Right. I don't know what the insurance agents did about the guys who had cattle and were able to feed, because a cow and a pig would go out into those fields and they would dig out every kernel of corn and get use of it, which means it's a benefit to the farmer, so he would lose a little bit of insurance payment if he did that. So that's not as common as it used to be. All of us, when I was young, we all had far fences around our fields, and we could graze cows, which gave the cows a big boost because they could just eat the corn right out of the field, and you benefited by the waste products, manure, muck, I think is what the English refer to it as.
So I have to wonder what this drought across the central U.S. is going to do for the winter wheat. It typically goes in late August and is harvested in early spring or late spring, early summer, and it will not benefit as much from the wintry precipitation. I know that the ranchers in Oklahoma will graze their cattle on it in the winter months,
Right.
and then pull them out in like late February, early March, so the crop can finish. But it's going to be a concern. That's bread prices, that's cereal prices, that's anything that uses those grains. Yeah.
And not only that, but going to restaurants and fast food places and stuff, as the price of wheat and those items that they buy that have wheat in it goes up, they're going to pass that on to the consumer. And I mean,
But not down to the farmer.
well, no.
No.
Unfortunately.
It's kind of it's a double thing. You can kind of see, well, it kind of should be fair to the consumer, but then again, at the same time, you have to keep in mind, besides providing a product, these people are also trying to make a living. So as their expenses go up, they get less profits if they keep their pricing the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, unfortunately, when you're running a business and minimum wage goes up. Well, that cuts into your profit line because you have to pay the employees more. So they usually tend to raise the pricing for their consumers to offset that. And it's kind of a vicious cycle in a way.
So the video that's playing right now, and it's going to play for a while, and we're going to talk over the top of it, but what's important about this is that many of the farmers that were affected by this are not corporations. They're not factory farms that are run by a large company that have employees. These people own or rent the land. They're people just like we are that are self-employed, trying to make a living. And in this case, some of them are quite young. And the channel that I get this from, they're called Some Good Stuff. SUM Good Stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting. You look at a few of the other videos, they show what they do, what their family does, you know. So the majority of our farm produce comes from places just like that have little cats like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that way when I was young and lived there, and it's still that way. There's, granted, there's the guys can go out and I watch Minnesota Millennial Farmer, and John Deere gave him a X9 1100 combine to run for 50 hours for testing, and he could combine 5,400 bushel an hour. I don't think that's right, but I mean he can combine at 6.5 miles an hour, and I don't know a lot of humans that can maintain that pace for a long time running. So it's they're a big operation, but they're still a family. They can trace their family's roots back to Norway, which a lot of the Minnesota people came from there because it was a lot like home, and they worked real good. But the important part about all of this is, and I've heard some of this, and a lot of times it comes from folks that live in the city and they don't understand what's going on. Most of our foodstuffs comes from families. They come from people that, well, if my dad was transported in time at the time he was the age he was when I was a kid, he could have probably handled 1,000 acres on his own. As it was, he did about 400. The machines help him do more with less help, but still, by and large, the farms may be bigger, but they're still operated by a family. And that's something important that I think is what people should understand is that, that guy in that picture with all that down corn, the only thing he wanted to do was produce a product that was not only worth money, it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what? He eats it too. So, he's got a decision-making process. So, I think that's the key thing here is there's some guys that had some pain and suffering over this, and we get that. But quite likely there was insurance payments. Sometimes not. Sometimes that can be a devastating thing for a farmer if you couldn't afford the insurance. But and she is doing something very dangerous there.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say.
But if those power lines have been laying down for a week, they're probably not alive anymore.
You would hope that they would have been disconnected by now.
Yeah, I would hope.
Well, yeah, and if I recall that it took weeks for some areas to get power back. But
Yeah.
the other thing there is, too, they did not have a great deal of wind following the Derecho, which was probably to their benefit in cleanup. They did have some rain that followed, which hindered some of the cleanup, but
yeah, their electric
yeah.
there was out for a long time. Now, I guess the benefit of being families out there is that she mentioned in the video, I when I watched it, that the two of them had been going over to her mom's to eat dinner because they didn't have any electric to cook anything. And, they do that like we do in the ham community, and, we all kind of take care of each other. But, it's really, I guess my pet peeve, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a rant, but when I hear somebody say, "Well, I'm not going to eat any of that corporate farm stuff," well, you know what? There's your corporate right there.
Hmm.
There's your, you know,
They are a limited liability corporation.
yeah, and they do that as a tax shelter, and they're just two young people that are out there making a living. And by and large, Patty, you've witnessed this when we've gone traveling. That's what most farms are. It doesn't matter if you're in Oklahoma or Kansas. Uh, the product they produce is different, but the people that produce it are the same.
Right.
So, um,
He grew up farming, and I grew up in a farm family. Although we didn't have the farm, we helped out all the
Hmm.
time, and so I guess we're both hyper aware of impacts of weather on them. And this brings a good point up, that weather affects us in everything that we do. From people who live in the city who now have to bring their plants in or they're going to get frozen off tonight, to people who are going camping this weekend that are going to be in extreme fire conditions, in colder temperatures. What do you do to stay warm and safe at the same time? Um, it does. It affects everything we do. To the people in Marion and Cedar Rapids who had a week or two of cleaning up their yards in a tree city, it does. It affects everything we do. And if the drought continues, it will affect everyone in the drought affected areas with water rationing. So,
now
you know,
when I guess, and Patty, when you say those things, and I understand where your concern comes from, and it's a legit concern. Growing up on a farm, droughts were a part of life.
mm-mm,
We had several years that I remember where there were extreme droughts. Um, and you know what the big worry is because everybody was self-employed, you didn't really have a good, you didn't really have a good backup plan unless you had savings. You know what I mean? So
right.
if you had a
Hmm.
bad year, you really had to be there for yourself to to survive it. And you know, it's not a. I guess to me, I don't find people. A lot of the folks I know, and Patty, you've seen it on my Facebook page. I got as many Iowa farm friends that I have Missouri friends. I didn't hear a lot of people begging for help, except those that were completely overwhelmed. You remember the certain one who was completely overwhelmed, and you know what? People jumped to her assistance.
Hmm.
But the farm families, they're like, that's part of life. That's how it
It
works. We're not living
it is.
on a year to year basis. We're living on a 10-year plan or a 15-year plan. So
Hmm.
um, that's kind of different. I mean, you know, you uh, I didn't go. Oh my God, I got to go up there and do something for them because I knew most of them were okay. You know,
Right.
Gotcha.
so yeah, a little bit
So
different.
Kevin has a question.
Yes, and I was going to bring that up whenever Steve was
Go ahead.
kind of at a point. He was saying that here the other day, up by his hometown of Troy, Missouri, they had a pretty good field fire that they had 9 different departments had to get in to control, and he's been hearing here around up by St. Louis County. He's heard 4 different calls that have involved fires involving combines, and he was
Yep.
just kind of wondering if that was because of the dry conditions, or do the combines just get that hot or overload. And I was telling him that I figure it was probably a kind of a bit of a combination of both. It's so dry that the heat that the combines produce is probably enough to catch the grass and plants on fire.
So, as I was saying earlier, when we introduce the topic of the fires. Right now, in the drought condition, the grasses are dry, the trees are losing their leaves. Anything out in the field that they are trying to combine is extremely dry.
Hmm.
Any spark can cause fire. The muffler heat from a vehicle can cause a fire. When you have that many working parts in a combine, there are occasional sparks, as well as the heat from the vehicle itself. So, you have to be very careful out in those dry fields right now because the vehicle itself
Yeah.
can cause the fire. So, it
Right.
is a combination. Yes, you were
So,
correct.
Yeah, I
so an
figure
added,
even just the heat from friction
the
in
No,
added,
really dry
no,
conditions could
not
maybe do it.
generally.
Because I think
Not generally.
Not
I did
generally.
see a design for a combine where basically there's little jets of water that come into the front of the header, and it sprays water down to make it all a little bit more moist. So then when the combine goes over it, if it does spark, it doesn't actually cause a fire, which I thought was actually a really good idea.
it
That is
it
a
is, and there is a uh, one of the farm YouTube channels that I pay attention to is Welker Farms, and they're in the Golden Triangle in Montana, which basically no one should be able to grow crops there, but they do, and they grow winter wheat, and uh, they and the millennial farmer both. One of the maintenance things you do to start the combine up is you open up all the access panels, and blow all the crap out of it. Uh, don't care how well a machine's designed, it's going to build up stuff because you're in loose stuff all the time. Dust. There's corn husks. There's bean leaves. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that builds up on a combine, and I guess that was probably one of those things that my dad didn't really do a good job of explaining to me, but that's what you did every time, is you get in there and you clean the crap off of the combine so that it doesn't build up to a point where a belt rubbing on it will create enough friction to start a fire. And um, especially when it's dry, it's hypercritical to do that. And um, things happen with combines. They're a machine like any other, but boy, you got to be on it. You got to be careful. I can remember we had a family friend that had a tractor burn, and it was like I was seeing this relatively older John Deere, is probably as old as I am, made in the '60s, and it's a heap of burnt metal. Used to be a
mm,
John Deere, now it's black.
wow.
And
You sure they just didn't change their paint scheme?
no, no. Now it was a 4020
Probably not.
John Deere, man. I remember the guy coming out because I was over there. We young kids, we'd go hang out at a friend's house, and mom and their mom would do. Ernie comes running up. Tractor's on fire. Call the fire department now. Get your junk out of the way. And yeah, it was like it was crazy. Uh, and Ernie was a volunteer firefighter. The last time I saw him, he was first responder duty out for an accident out in the wilds of Iowa, which it's kind of big flat, semi rolling, just forever. He's out in this intersection about 10 miles from town, and there'd been a wreck, and it's kind of funny because you pull up and there's the guy directing traffic, and you know the guy. He's friends with your parents. So, a little bit different. A little bit different than the what I consider big city I'm here in Springfield. Kieran, you wouldn't think that. You you would call it a small town.
I say cities over here are pretty big.
Yeah, yeah. They go on and on. But anyway, that's kind of the thing I wanted to talk about tonight. And I'll post some links. I'll edit the afterwards. I'll get some links to my videos. There's a couple Iowa State videos that I didn't show that are rather lengthy, and they're kind of more geared towards the science of farming. So um, it's just for me, it's kind of near and dear to my heart because they may not necessarily be people I know, but it's where my home had always
You know
been.
people like them, so therefore
Exactly.
you can understand what they're going through.
Right. So yeah, you know. But
So I'm
anyway,
going to address something else Kevin's talking about here. So, as far as issuing tickets for people who are burning trash on high fire days, it's kind of up to the county whether they put a no burn in place or not. And some counties are quicker to do that than others. It's always a good idea if you live rurally and you're allowed to burn your trash that you call your local fire department or ask a volunteer that you know if it is okay to burn. Um, I know I've lived rurally myself, and we would wait for a good thunderstorm to go start the burn pile.
snow.
Um,
When there's snow on the ground, it's the
so
time to burn the burn
yeah,
pile.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
and
Uh,
see, my grandparents, they burn trash some. Not so much my grandma and my grandpa anymore, but my uncle does. And um, there's times when there's no red flag warning, there's no fire advisory or anything. It's a little windy. They will not burn. They've got a big, huge, like a 55-gallon metal barrel. Everything goes in, it doesn't get filled above halfway, and that's what they burn everything in. So I mean, it's just being smart about it, and if it's really, really dry and it's windy, even if you do have that, and I think my uncle's got like a little lid that he can kind of put partially over it to kind of minimize, ambers or anything kind of coming out. Just don't burn. You can keep it a day or two or three, and then burn it whenever the conditions are more favorable.
I I think that
exactly.
there's some things that some people don't always understand,
Mhm.
and there is some liability involved in burning.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
And if you start a fire and it gets out of control and it goes and burns up your neighbor's house or barn, yes, that person may have insurance, but the next thing you know, you are the one that caused the liability. You are
Yeah.
held responsible.
And it may be either them, or if their insurance company has to pay out big time on it, the insurance company may
It
seek legal action against you because you caused it.
it will be the
Well,
insurance
over here,
company.
Yeah.
if that was a fact, if someone started burning something in the backyard and it caught another house on fire, that's actually classed as arson over here. So it is actually an arrestable and chargeable offence.
And see, I wonder if like someone did that here in Springfield, because I don't think you are allowed to burn outside legally in Springfield.
You are not.
I wonder if that would be
You
a
are
similar
not.
situation. The
You
fire
can have
marshal
a
would
fire.
consider
You
it
can have a
arson.
fire. You can have a fire pit.
Yeah.
But and that's a very contained space. But if it smells like you're burning trash in that fire pit, they will show up on your doorstep if a neighbor calls and complains,
Yeah.
and they can cite you. So,
But
right, the
if
city of
you
Springfield is very strict about it.
if you are found to be at fault, um, most times the county will not do anything other than, or the city won't do anything but issue a citation. But I'm sure that Kieran probably has been involved in investigations because the insurance companies use those officials investigations and determine who's at fault. You will
Yep.
go to court. They will. They'll seek monetary damages because the insurance company had to pay. And I assure you, those guys do that for a living. They're pros at
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And they'll eke out every penny they can
Especially-
get. Even if you can't pay it, it don't matter. You got the case
They'll,
judgment
they'll
against
get a
you.
judgment against you, and they'll wait until you get some money, and then they'll enforce that judgment.
They'll garnish you.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, they can actually legally have it withheld so much per week or bi-weekly, however you get paid out of your paycheck.
And
And depending on what state you're in, even accidental fires like the one in California that was started by the baby reveal that turned into tens of thousands of acres of burned area, those people will probably pay very dearly for that. Um,
and it those of us who have, say, we have homeowners or renters insurance, generally our liability is $1 million. And I don't, I'm not real up on the United Kingdom's insurance laws, but that's a typical. I've had people call when I worked for USAA. It's like, oh, I've got to have $1 million policy, and I'm like, well, we don't issue any less than that. So
Yeah.
if you want something bigger, we can have a talk. But $1 million is just how much they go. And
Kevin, we already talked about snow, honey. I don't think we're going to reverse anymore. I'm sorry you came in late.
but yeah, the liability can be considerable if you start a fire. And walking into court going, man, I didn't even know. And it's like, well, you know what? That doesn't really count. You started it. There were plenty of options out there to see that this is not the time to be burning, and you did it anyway. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, last year when we had a big drought, and I mean this was a really, really big hot spell for us. Everything was dry, and there was somebody who burnt, just had a bonfire in the back garden, but they caught the back fence on fire, which then caught the neighbouring house on fire, and it actually killed the 3 people that were inside of the house.
That's no good.
And I do remember that they actually got charged with manslaughter.
Yeah, I can see that.
And see, you never
Because
know.
it wasn't they didn't go out to kill them, but they got killed due to their negligence.
Right.
So it is classed as manslaughter.
Yeah,
over here.
and I think that's kind of typically how it usually is here. Now, it might over here, instead of just being regular manslaughter, they actually do have what's in a lot of jurisdictions is involuntary manslaughter. So over here,
Yeah.
that might be more what that would probably fall under. I don't know technically what the difference is, except for maybe just plain manslaughter is with intention, but it's not necessarily like first or second degree murder.
Yeah, it wouldn't be murder because
Yeah.
for murder over
It
here
wasn't
we actually
intentional.
have to show intent.
Yeah.
Like if someone pulled a gun and shot someone, that's murder because they had intent to kill that person.
Yeah.
And if you
for that we do have to we have to have a very strong case to be able to convict someone of that.
if you planned it and then you went and did it, that's first degree murder.
Yeah, but if it's just like heat of the moment, that's typically more second degree, isn't it? That you didn't take the time to plan it in advance.
It also depends on the case. I mean, it's very sticky with how that sort of thing works sometimes.
Gotcha.
I mean, it really does depend on the specific case. I mean, you could have 2 cases that are almost identical, but you change 1 or 2 things about it, and it changes the
It's
outcome
completely different.
100%.
Gotcha.
But when I was growing up in the Corn Belt, it was extremely rare that there was a field fire. Um, you just didn't. There just didn't happen very often. And generally speaking, if you had a drought in August, that was the most likely time a field would burn. Well, the corn is green enough; it won't burn. Even in a drought, it hadn't dried out that much. The real risk, and my dad did this when we were young. We planted oats and alfalfa together, so that the oats would grow up in one season and cover crop for the alfalfa, which the following year it would be alfalfa field that we baled in hay. In August, that's when the oats would ripen, and it's a great big field of tinder. It's that dry straw stuff, you know. Those would be the things that you'd have some concern about burning. But in Iowa, you rarely ever heard of a field fire, even if somebody was out there with a machine that caught on fire. It generally didn't go far. It really didn't cause any kind of real big things. So they're not a big deal. Now if you go through, if you pay attention to the Welkers up in Montana, they have a lot more problem with that, and they actually built their own firefighting rig that they use for spraying herbicide, insecticide, whatever they do. But they got it rigged up so that they've got a remote control head on it. They can drive down a fire and just put it out in a field just like crazy. I mean, they're holding 10,000 gallons of water, so it's doing it. So it's serious. So a lot of these farmers out in especially real rural areas, and Shelby, Montana is one of them ones. It's out there in the middle of nowhere. You depend on yourself. You do it yourself. You make it happen. If it's going to happen, you're going to be the one doing it. And I think a lot of my friends had always had that mentality as is, if you wanted it, you did it yourself. If there was a concern, you dealt with that concern yourself, because you really didn't, as self-employed people, you really didn't have a big catch basin there for people that had problems. They just was in bad place, you know. So it little different way of living, but it takes all kinds. It really does. So looks like we've lost our captain for this flight.
No,
I
she
know,
just
she
had
just
to.
sort of up and left.
She
Yeah.
just had to, I think, turn on autopilot and maybe go use the little airplane captain's room.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I don't know if I don't have any more, and I appreciate the comments and discussion on this because it's a good topic. Does anyone else have anything to cover tonight?
No, I'm
Okay, so you remember what we talked about, Patty. It's time for you to make that announcement. Ronnie, get it queued up. This is your captain speaking.
Is this a rant?
This is your captain speaking. He's issuing an order for rant as we head in for our landing time.
Put your tray tables in
Yeah,
the
I don't wanna
upright
blow up.
position and
Okay.
fasten your
Trays-
seat belts.
Push your
Just make
trays
sure.
in, fasten your seatbelts, and be prepared for touchdown.
Do we need to turn on the
because
no
it's going to be
smoking
a
sign?
bumpy landing.
Yeah.
Yes, please
Do we
cue the
have,
no smoking sign.
I'm out on the rant because I've
Waking
done
up any
ranted.
babies or anything, right? Okay, just checking. Here we go. Let's see here. Oh man, it's gotten changed up a little bit here. for some reason.
Retro.
I'm gonna
I
go
Ruh-roh.
think you need some practice with this, Rodney, because you seem to be getting slower rather than faster.
No. I got it. I don't know. Something didn't get added on here for some reason.
Oh,
Alright.
you broke it again.
I fixed it. It's good.
Oh, but to be fixed, that means you must have broken it.
You guys are so mean. All right.
Well, technically, I'm the only one speaking, so you just called me mean.
Well, we're gonna crash if I don't get this. So here we go.
I think we're going to have to divert the plane and come in for another attempt.
It's a go around.
So go around.
So what you do
You know,
is you divert power from the port in the cell into the audio mixer. Okay, if you
I
can't
think this is a good time for the technical difficulty side.
if you can't
I'm heading for it.
cue
I'm
the
on
RAM
it.
audio, can you at least do the crickets?
Eh,
Oh, it should be more like this.
Steve, share my screen.
Ruh-roh.
This is your flight attendant speaking. We are currently experiencing technical difficulties. The pilot and co-pilot are working studiously to right this situation, and we should be down at our designated airport here shortly. We do ask you to keep your seats in the upright position. Please have your trays up and locked, and during the duration of this situation, we ask that you please do not smoke. Thank you for flying the Jungle Chaser Airlines.
And please do not look out to the right window, as
Yeah.
that is definitely not a mountain that we're heading towards.
So, and I must say, I must qualify, we are a great team because they had no idea I was going to introduce this as a flight tonight. So I give credit to the team here. You guys have been great.
Well, you should have
Well, no,
given it the
considering as you only
opportunity
added me to
to kind of say, well, before we get on our flight, we needed some important things here. If we crash, you're out of luck.
There are no oxygen masks.
There aren't going to be
on
any
this flight.
oxygen masks falling.
There
are
There's not going to
no-
be any
there are-
flotation device.
We
You're
don't
on
get-
your own.
We don't
Thanks
get
for
foam
flying Jungle Chaser
sprayed
to-
on the landing strip or anything.
No, there's no safety net.
I think
No.
that video kind of explains it well. Do you see?
Yeah. I'm kind of like thinking, this doesn't actually look like this thing is coming in for a landing. It looks like they took like the vertical takeoff system for Harrier and putting it on
What
a
was the
jetliner.
What was the term they used for doing this when they can't keep it level? There was a certain term, Steve. We
All I
was in a
can-
video we watched last night.
All I can think about was that SR-71 pilot saying that any landing that you can walk away from is a good one, and any landing that they can use the airplane again is even better.
The top secret what it costs millions of dollars to build. They don't care about the pilot. They just care about the plane.
Hey, if
Oh,
if
you
it's-
gave up on that one.
If it's a situation where you've got to care about an SR-71 pilot or an SR-71, I'm voting for the SR-71 every single freaking time because it's
No
a
refund.
cool plane.
So, two things you got to do.
Braniff Airlines, you buckle up with a piece of rope and hang on to an orange crate and enjoy the flight.
Or if you're like
BOAC.
or if you're like Sam Neill in the helicopter towards the beginning of Jurassic Park, and you've got two parts that don't go together, just tie them together.
So, two things about the SR-71 pilot. You gotta check out LA Speed Test.
I think you had me look that up one time. That's the
Yes.
one where they've got the different people that are asking the control tower to call out their speed, and the SR-71 pilot gets maybe just a tiny bit cocky.
Just a little.
Just a
But-
tad, maybe.
Video we watched was actually the pilot of that plane, and it was his co-pilot that did that,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of shut everybody up.
Well, I mean, come
But-
on. When you're in a SR-71, you have to.
That pilot guy, Patty, you could say his name. I don't remember it,
Can't remember.
but that guy should have died in Vietnam in a plane crash
But didn't.
and didn't. And
he was told he would never fly again.
Mm-hmm.
And he not only flew again, but he had to pass an astronaut's 2-day physical
Oh wow.
to fly the SR-71, and he did. He's
Awesome.
horribly scarred. He has to do things. His hands are a bit twisted with muscles. He has to do things a little differently than other people. This man was amazing. If you ever get
Yeah.
a chance to look at the pilot of the SR-71, and I can't even think of the name of the video. I came up on it on chance,
Mm-hmm.
and watch the entire video because it's amazing. He's got this great attitude toward life itself and doing those things that. And this will be my rant. I'm just going to kick it off.
that's the guy
So-
right there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Um, whatever you want to do, he says take it on like with the mindset of a child that has no limitations. Don't listen to the naysayers, and you can do everything you dreamed of and beyond. And he's in the second chapter of his life where he's gone into photography. He's getting ready to open up a studio. But yeah, he was never supposed to be able to fly again. Spent a year in the hospital
Mm-hmm.
in rehab. And one of his last flights, he actually was taking off from an airport very near the hospital he had spent that year in, and did a little diversion on takeoff to fly past and to kind of put a closure on that
Oh,
part of
wow.
his
Full
life.
afterburner SR-71 right over top of the hospital. The
And
guy's
the
name is
doctor
Brian
said that-
Schull. His last name is spelled Schul. Check out his book, Sled Driver, Flying the World's Fastest Jet.
They
And
actually set world records that have not been broken, and they did it on the last flight of the plane when it was retired. They flew it from San Diego to Washington D.C. in what was it, 96 minutes
Mm-hmm.
or less?
Wow.
it
Or
was
was it less than that?
something unbelievable.
And so it was an official record that has never been broken. It had not been official up to that point on any of their speeds. He would say, and he said it several times, that the plane would go faster than the specs said it would. And he had pushed those limits several times.
Yeah, he
This-
got
this
to wear
is
the
it.
patch that said 3+,
M-
Mach 3+.
Mach 3 plus. Yeah.
Yeah.
M3 plus.
Um,
And
I'd always heard that it would literally setting on the runway, the freaking engines would leak oil, that they were built to such tolerance
Ew.
that the system wouldn't completely seal until they got up to speed. And I
Fuel.
believe
It was fuel.
was it fuel, not oil? Okay. And I think I had always heard that after so many flights, they basically kind of had to partially rebuild the engines
I wouldn't
Yeah.
doubt that.
because they were just under so much stress.
He didn't talk about that. He talked
Yeah.
about cheating to get photos along the way. Uh, there was one that he actually was he was caught with his camera in the seat, and commanding officer challenged him on it, and he said uh, something to the commander, if you let me do this, she'll have a photo on your wall that nobody in the world has.
Yeah.
And he said you have 10 seconds, and he managed to get 2 shots off. And at that point, he didn't even know what the aperture of the camera was. He didn't have any idea of that concept.
And it was
It's
film.
an, it
It
was
wasn't
filmed.
digital.
Yeah.
It was an amazing photo.
Cool.
So, yeah, this guy though, his attitude toward life, he went from 186 pounds, I believe he said, down to 118 in the hospital. He wasn't eating, he couldn't eat, and he was laying there watching kids in a soccer field, and something sparked inside of him that I want to do that again. I want to be that again. And so they started finding what he could get down and keep down, because at that point his body was so shut down that he couldn't hold anything down. And somebody at the hospital had Kool-Aid in their lunch, and he kept the red Kool-Aid down, and he was drinking 5 gallons a day until his metabolism reset so that he could take solid foods. And he built himself back from that and the pain of the burns, and went on to do these extreme things with his life. And always with naysayers in front of him saying, no, you
You'll
can't
never
do
be able
that.
to do this.
And if you flunk the astronaut physical, you'll never fly another plane. And he's like, so what would prevent me from doing that? And
I'm not
he had
supposed to
actually,
be doing it now, right?
yeah, I'm not supposed to be doing it now. What have I got to lose, kind of thing. So his attitude has a lot in it we can gain from. It's what is in our mind can drive how we are, who we are, and what we do with our lives. And finding those positive things, walking through a dark forest when you're scared, which is kind of what we're doing in this COVID event. Oh, I said the word. The
That's
C19 event. The C19 event. Okay. We're kind of walking in that dark forest and around things that we can't necessarily see or understand. And instead of focusing on the fear, we focus on the stars for our navigation. We focus on the night sounds that can soothe us, and the light rustle of the wind in the trees. And we let that be our guide and our peace to our souls. And may you always find that peace, and may you always be able to see the stars in the darkness. That's my rant.
That's a good rant. And that's the only one.
Yeah, that is incredible that he had went through so much and then he got to fly the fastest plane.
Yeah, not just any plane, the
Oh, yeah.
fastest plane.
The
And
the
didn't
the,
go on to stay a pilot.
the only
he
the only way you
moved on
could
to
top the only way you could top that, in my opinion, would be is if he got to fly some kind of spacecraft.
Well, he kind of did.
Well, yeah,
They
the
didn't.
SR-71 almost goes into almost like a low
Almost.
orbit. Not quite, but almost.
Not quite. It's still within the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Barely.
Another story that's kind of, I guess you could say, a little bit similar, different circumstances, and didn't turn out quite as nice. Have any of you ever heard of a astronaut by the name of Deke Slayton?
Oh yeah.
Deke ended up being the head of personnel for NASA for many, many years, but he was one of the original Mercury astronauts. He had some kind of a heart defect. I can't remember what it was. The flight surgeons would never clear him, so he never ever got to fly any spacecraft into space. He found another role that he could play within NASA to help get man on the moon, and he did that very successfully. One thing that I thought was a very fitting and touching tribute was whenever you become an astronaut, you get a little silver pin. When you fly your first mission into space, they replace that with a gold pin. Officially, Deke never got a gold pin, but after the fire that killed Gus Grissom, Roger Chaffee, and Ed White during the plugs out test for the Apollo 1 spacecraft, their wives got together and gave Deke one of the gold pins that one of their husbands was supposed to get, which I thought was very touching because, I mean, he was very passionate about the space program. He really wanted to go. He was like, I'll sign any waiver you want me to sign. I want to go into space. And they never would let him.
I don't understand some of the military mindset when there's something like a torn meniscus or a heart defect that could have a simple surgery to correct, physical therapy where you could actually build yourself back to better than you were before. And they prevent them from going into certain areas that they would excel in while in the service.
Well, you know, that's like for a long time after his Mercury mission, they would not let Alan Shepard go back into space because he suffered from extremely severe vertigo. He only got to go on what was supposed to Apollo 13 and then ended up on Apollo 14 because he had what was at the time very experimental surgery on his inner ear to alleviate the vertigo. And until he had that surgery, they would not let him go back up.
And it's amazing that they let him.
Yeah.
Because so many are being denied. And yet you see these Marines that get fitted with a prosthetic.
Yeah.
They go through physical therapy, they learn to run, and they're back in service in combat. I just really have a hard time wrapping my head around, okay, you've got a torn meniscus in your knee, so we can't let you go fix helicopters. What?
So
you know, it seems so random.
I bet there's one thing that Brian Shaw guy won't do.
What's that?
He won't ride on them airplanes doing that. Because he's not the one driving it. He'd be like, just let me drive it, I'll be fine. But I bet you he's the worst passenger in the world.
What is that airfield? I can't remember the name of that airfield.
This one?
Yeah.
It's right near Kieran. Most of them
that's
are.
not Heathrow, is it?
No, it's Farnborough, Wellington Airport. It's right near Kieran.
There's another one though where the wind blows all the time and they come in like that. What is that other one?
That's the probably most famous one right now. So Kieran, if you're looking for something to do on a lazy Sunday afternoon,
take the kids
Go
to watch
plane
the
watching.
planes.
We do.
Ah.
We do go out and watch the planes. Quite often. It's
Keep-
quite funny.
keep the young ones happy. You could,
Oh, yeah.
I used to do that with my young ones. Man, they'd keep them busy for hours.
Not ones like that, but occasionally we can walk out the front door or off the balcony and see a little twin engine, little airplane flying over to the north of us.
Quite often, because our police helicopter is based at Farnborough. So quite often we see that take off and land, and it's quite funny because obviously I know where it's heading to and where it's coming back from, and everyone else is like, oh, I wonder where that's gone.
Gotcha.
something that we've been seeing fly overhead in the downtown area is our new police drones.
Oh, I
And
haven't seen one of those yet.
usually about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Um, on occasion, it seems like that's when they're doing they're testing with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's huge. You, you think it's a helicopter, but it's like stopped. And it's like
Gotcha.
that's not a helicopter. That's
Well,
what
Rodney,
is
have you
that?
got it queued up? The rant
For what?
for the rant.
The rant queue.
Yeah, man, I made the noise earlier.
Yeah, we never heard
Didn't
it.
hear it.
That's why we put up the technical difficulty sign.
Make sure you've got your
put that with
sliders and
me?
everything turned up.
So we're going to try it. We're going to attempt this landing one last time. So again, trays up,
I didn't
seatbelts
know. I
on.
thought you all were
No,
laughing and
but
everything. I thought it was all going.
Cue,
No, we
cue
were
the
laughing at
cue
you.
the no smoking sign and be prepared for touchdown.
All right, well,
As
hold on.
the A380 comes in.
We're gonna try it again. Y'all hear that?
I heard
Heard a
that.
ding.
All
Heard a
right, so here
ding.
you go. Ready?
A ding.
Well, shoot. Almost ready.
Just
No,
when he has
this is not
something
a
else on his
technical
computer
support.
and he
You got-
plays that by accident.
There we go.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
We did.
And so, since we've not heard a lot out of Kieran tonight, we're going to let him go with his rant.
My rant today is not really a rant, if I'm going to be honest. Basically, it kind of touched on from what Passy was saying last week about mental health. Because a couple of days ago, we had a teenager that tried to take his mum's car and was going to go down the wrong way down the motorway to try and kill himself. So I put the vehicle into a ditch basically to stop him from doing that. And I learnt earlier today that he had gotten out of the hospital and unfortunately they found him no longer with us. It's just one of those things. Unfortunately, you've got to. It's hard on me because it's a difficult situation because you try not to get too attached to jobs, but that one did kind of weigh on me a little bit, and you just got to look after people, especially at the times that we're going on at the moment. You know, you got to keep an eye on each other and make sure everyone's all right, because it's a really testing time at the moment.
Sad.
It is.
It is.
Permanent end to a temporary situation, and
But I guess I have a hard time with that. Obviously had an opportunity for help, but yet they still go there.
and those that are determined will, unfortunately. And they learn while they're in the hospital that there's a certain talk you can talk, and they're done with you at the hospital. Long gone are the days when people would be in there for 30 or 40 days until they really got better. Now it's patch it up, send them on, and they're supposed to get follow-up care, which isn't always immediate. And
You
know,
are the mental health expert in the group. My question is, and I hope that your answer to this is no. Is it because it's too expensive and people just don't want to pay for it? I mean, not necessarily the individual, but maybe insurance, or if they're put in there by the government doesn't want to pay for it. Ultimately, someone somewhere says, you know what, this person should be in here longer. They truly need help, but we're not going to pay for it.
combination of things there, Franklin. And I was working in the field of mental health in '93
Mm-hmm.
when HMOs had really started stepping in and taking over our medical care.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things they wanted to cut was mental health. And unfortunate, we went from lengths of stay, as I said, of 30 days to lengths of stay of 3 to 5. And that's
Mm-hmm.
all the insurance would pay. And this was based on their quote studies that said that a person should be stabilized in that amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
enough to go home and handle this without patient care. And I look back and I remember, and it still hits my heart. We had a 16-year-old girl in our unit who I happened to be the department head that was in on the uh, discharge.
Mm-hmm.
And after the parents had been told that they would be stuck for 100% of any charges if they didn't come get her, um, because the insurance was done. This young lady was in tears in front of me saying, I'm still suicidal. I don't know what I can do. And, to intervene in that moment and give someone hope to walk out the door from the help that they were dependent on,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I still hope and pray that what I had, those words that came to me that day, were enough to keep her hanging on to get that follow-up care.
Mm-hmm.
Because
It's heartbreaking. And
See, that's one of my biggest gripes with healthcare, particularly in this country. No matter whether it's you have cardiac disease, the cartilage in your knees wore out, all the way up to mental health, is I do get it is a business, but I think it's run too much solely like a true hardcore business. Because when you start getting into people's health, people's mental health, what they need to carry on a minimum quality of life, to me, profit margin and bottom dollar shouldn't even be in the equation. It's what does this person need to maintain that quality of life, to get the health care they need to
yeah,
get.
yeah, I get that people don't need to spend 6 weeks in the hospital for a gallbladder surgery like they did back in the 60s. I
But some
don't
people
get
might
that they
need
have
more
that
than
same
2 days.
surgery. Please let me finish.
I'm sorry.
I don't get that they do that same surgery now and send you home the same day. Um, and people are not geared toward, their own medical care that way. And yet, for whatever reason, insurance companies think they are. And then the doctors get upset with their patient because they didn't do something right at home. It's like, or they took something into their own hands to deal with that they should have gone to the doctor for. It's like, what's the message you're sending here? It's all driven by insurance companies. And I think that there needs to be something in play to hold them accountable to make sure people really do get what they need, no matter what the treatment.
yeah, because that's a bit like what we have over here, like the NHS. Because if the like for him, he got put into the hospital, so it's all paid for by the NHS. No matter
Right.
what he needs, or no matter how long he needed to stay there for, it would have all been paid for by the NHS, unless he decided to go private. Then that's up to him to pay for, or an insurance company to pay for if they'll cover that. But if they just, if they want the care, it is there and it is free for them. It's
I have to qualify here that my statements are my own opinion.
Mm.
They don't necessarily reflect those of anybody else in this group.
None of us are doctors,
Right.
so don't seek medical advice or we're just caring individuals. That's what
Right.
we are.
well,
And
I try to.
none of us are health insurance uh, providers either. So
No.
it's purely my own opinion here. There are some things broken, but again, people learn a certain talk, and if they're in there against their will, they learn what to say and how to act, at least for a temporary time, to get what they want.
Hmm.
And the scary thing about suicidal clients, and I have no answers for this after, well, I went into the field of mental health in '83. I have no answer after all these years. Sometimes you get someone who's determined, they're resolved to it. They've gone through all those steps in their mind and they've come to an acceptance of where they're at with their plan of suicide and they get at peace. And so their presentation in the hospital is one that they're very peaceful and they're very calm and they're not in distress anymore and they walk out the door and they're done. But there's no way for those people on the unit to catch it because at that moment there are no cues.
Hmm.
I
So
just can't imagine getting that rationale with yourself that you're okay with ending everything.
No, I've never understood it, and that's another reason why it weighed quite hard on me because I he was obviously one of the determined ones because no matter what I would have done, because I mean I stopped him the first time, got him the help that he needed, and uh, apparently the nurse left the room for I think she said like 5-10 minutes, and when she came back, he was no longer there, and they found him about 2 hours later.
mm,
That's scary, but
yeah. And they feel their life is worthless. They feel no one cares. They can hear the words, but they don't feel the words. And that's the depression talking. And depression does horrible things to us in our mindset. And there are things we can do. Depression's treatable. Hard to get that point across to a young one, especially that this is a temporary situation. I have to wonder, and I've run into several of these cases where 16, 17, 18 years of age is when psychosis can often set in, and the kids don't have a dialogue with the adults in their life that's trusting enough to say, "Hey, I've got these voices telling me to do things." Um, it's a tough one for them, and the voices might even say, "We're going to kill you if you don't." Um, so parents, talk to your kids, and if you see changes in them, talk to them about those changes, and make sure that you are available to them. That's my best advice.
And I'm fully behind that one.
well, know this, Kieran. We're sitting here with that same feeling I think you have as a person. It's frustrating. You don't know what to do because you got to be able to do something. You know, especially guys, we're fixers. And
Mm.
obviously, and I have actually spoke to real professional people about these things because I'm like, oh man, there's got to be something. There really, there really isn't something when they're at that place. You know, you catch the ones who cry for help. You see those, Kieran. Patty hears from those.
Mm.
When they say, hey, or they do something and, you know, they let everybody know they're going to do it, that's a cry for help. Okay, all right, we get it. We're going to help you. But those ones that just go do it, you can't. Boo.
Yeah. The
And
ones that just go do it, you cannot, um, you can't stop it unless you happen to be with them.
yeah.
Um, that I hate that people get in that place and feel that they cannot reach past it.
Yeah.
There's things to call. There's people out there that will be with you in the darkness to help walk you through back to a moment of light so that you can move on and get some help. There's resources out there for everyone. Um, you may feel like you can't afford a hospital stay, but around here, the hospitals can't turn you away if you truly are in danger because that's a medical emergency. They cannot turn you away for a medical emergency. And mental health, psychology in general is one of the newest scientists or sciences on the planet. We're still learning every day the nature of the brain, the chemicals in the brain, and how to adjust those chemicals and provide verbal treatment to people to treat the various mental illnesses. And unfortunately, in society, uh, there are many, many people that think because it's in your head, you can just get over it. Excuse me. No, this is a medical thing. Even every one of us in this quorum here has had days when we're depressed. Let's face it, everybody faces it, just some to a greater degree or lesser degree than others. Some for a longer period of time, and those that have it for that longer period of time or get into that dark place with their thoughts. Society, unfortunately, has made it difficult for them to think it's okay to reach out because it's in their head. They need to just get over it. Can I go for a second rant?
Well, and
This
also
is
I think
something I'm passionate about.
whether it's been intentional or not, I'm sure with some people it has been. Other people's it's been purely unintentional. Society has put that stigma on not even just depression, any kind of mental health issue, that it's shameful. You shouldn't talk about it. If people find out about it, they're not going to like you. They're going to distance themselves from you. And that's something that completely needs to be done away with. That needs to be
Little
completely turned
history
around.
trip here, and let me tell you how recent this is, okay? 1971.
Mhm.
A young lady was diagnosed with a gender identity disorder. She was placed into a state hospital. She stayed there for 4 years. She went to high school while she was there. She graduated while they were there, and they said, you need to have a surgery and get this right. There wasn't any, um, let's get you out and get you into therapy so you can learn to accept who you are.
Mhm.
There was, we're just going to lock you away.
Mhm.
Well, it was happening in people's homes too. There were people locked in attics, locked in basements, put in chains because they were, quote, hysterical and not manageable. And this is only 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So our society has not come forward with the science in treating mental illness of any kind. Many have, but there is still a general mindset out there that it's not a medical condition when it truly is. Acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin, those are chemicals in the brain, and they get out of whack. And when they get out of whack, there's medicine you can take to bring them back in. People with panic attacks, talk therapy is wonderful. Sometimes you need meds to go with that. Depression, there's chemicals you can put in your body to help to alleviate the depressive symptoms while you get talk therapy to learn coping skills to manage so you don't get in those deepest darkest places. Build trust with your providers so that if you suddenly have a breakthrough of depression and you don't want to get up in the morning anymore, you talk to your doctor. There may be something they can do with your meds over the phone to help you. So, but they're not being told these things even by the providers. So we still have a bit of a way to go with education.
Yeah.
It'll happen. It's just so new. Um,
I
it
must
just
admit,
takes
I think
time.
that's another thing that I feel that needs to change about my job is I feel that we need a lot more training in that kind of field because although that's not something that we're supposed to be dealing with in my in my job, but we always seem to get the call and we always seem to be on the scene first before we can get medical professionals there. So I feel that we need a little bit more training in that kind of stuff to be able to deal with this a little bit easier and hopefully get better results.
We have a program here called VCIM where the uh, officers in the field have got a tablet and they can actually go virtual online with us uh, in given situations where we're present but we're not for our own safety uh, with the persons that are in distress. We also have quite a number of officers who have had what they call critical crisis intervention training, uh, who can go to a scene. For example, you have an autistic man, 22, 23 years of age, who's having a fit because he's gotten oversensitized to something and he can't get himself back under control. He's busting holes in walls, he's threatening people. You want a CIT officer in that case that could walk in and help to talk him down. Um, and they're getting the training from mental health professionals, at least basics, so that they know when they walk into a situation what to do, what to say.
Yeah, and for us with that kind of stuff, we pretty much have to rely on what we can pick up on, on all our calls and all our experience and past experiences and stuff like that. We don't actually get. We got very little. We got that literally very basic on very basic scenes that we can come across, like autism and stuff like that. We got basic training on stuff like that because that's something that any officer can come up against. But when you start getting into the deeper things like suicide and all that lot, we have nothing. We can literally just rely on what we think is going to be the right thing to say at that particular time. We don't have, any book or, like we can't get, like you have like the tablet. We don't have anything like that. We might be able to get someone on the other end of the phone if we're lucky. Um, you know, and I feel in some situations that extra help from a professional in that field would help out quite a lot. I mean, because I only know so much about that stuff.
Right.
I can only try and bring their mind off of what's causing them and try and bring it onto something else and hope that that works. Um, or hope that that buys me enough time until we can get someone there who is trained to be able to deal with the situation.
So what you did with the young man, Kieran, I'm going to tell you, you did the right thing. You got him to the help in the moment. What happened beyond that is out of your control. And that's the hard part for those of us who are caring, giving people in people fields, is that we have to let go of those cases and somehow debrief with someone else who understands, um, to let go. Because from the moment that we turn them loose to someone else's care, they are no longer ours. And that situation becomes outside of us. So um, I hope that you've at least got other officers to debrief with for situations like this, because I can't imagine carrying that and not having that fellowship.
We have little bits of support. There's nothing, major. I mean, that's another thing that needs to be overhauled. But I mean, if we want to go through that, I can think of 100 things that need to be overhauled in my line of work. But things like that is just budget cuts and all that lot are just completely hammered all of that.
Debriefing, though, can be written into the protocol so easily.
Mm.
Um,
We have tried a few different things, but it keeps getting shot down. It's something that I am working on with up my department to try and get more professionals in there to help the officers. Because obviously, if we're not in good shape to be dealing with this kind of thing, then the next call is going to end even worse because of the backlog from other calls.
right.
Um,
The
and
only reason our officers have the tablets is that it was done on a grant. Um, our company is not for profit, and our police department is working on trying to get body cams. So funding is weak
mm,
at best. So fortunate enough that someone wrote the grant, and it was supported by one of our senators to get that grant passed. So
and it's a really good idea, and I might try and take it a little bit and try and see if we can implement something like that with our department, as that might be a better cost effective way of doing things. Not short term, but longer term.
right.
Um, so I think that might be something that we could try and implement.
And you have crisis hotlines over there, so if you could get on board with them,
Mm,
to be those people who are there for you to take those calls. Now, ours have to be initiated through a phone call first, but um, as a weakness in our software. But we're not always watching Zoom if we're
yeah.
doing other things. But initiated by a phone call, and then we can take it at our desk, and we're there with them.
Because especially when we're on scene, the maximum I'll be able to get is, if I'm lucky, and this is if I'm lucky, I'll be able to get someone at the end of the phone. But that's quite often not even the case. What we just have to do is call it through, and then the dispatch will then try and get someone out there, you know, for via medical, and see what they can do there. But getting someone at the end of a phone can be a task on itself,
Mm.
especially on scene. It like because once you've got them calmed down, you can get them help via the crisis hotlines, and then taking them to the hospital. But when you're on scene, a lot of these crisis hotlines and stuff like that, they don't really want to do that because there's other stuff going on, like could be an active crime scene and all of this lot, and that due to their way of doing things and their policies and their guidelines, they're not allowed to take the calls, which
Mm.
I think is a little bit silly. But
You know, I never ask if it's an active crime scene. If the officer gets a hold of me, it means that there's questions there with this person they can't answer.
mm,
And they will try to get the tablet in the hands of that person so we can do our own assessment. And beyond that, I don't see anything but the officer's face and the customer's or consumer's face. Um, and I don't. My questions aren't in that direction. My questions are in the direction of the care of that consumer. So
which is, in my personal opinion, what it should be.
right.
I mean, because at this point, if I'm trying to get help from somebody else, it means I don't know what I'm doing here. I need help from the professionals. As long as I'm the one contacting them, it shouldn't be an issue. But apparently to them it is, which again is another thing that confuses me. But
Yeah. Understood. Who's next?
Rodney.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have I don't know, I guess a little bit of rant. It's not very big, but I don't know if I ever talked about this before, and I think it's always kind of frustrating, but I was considering just getting a domain. I don't know, so I necessarily want to get a website or anything just yet, but just having a domain just in case. And so, you go and you look around. I'm thinking, well, I'll do my last name. And I mean, I didn't think that my family name was all that important, but if you go and you look on a registration for, you know, a web domain of Maloney.com, you can buy it, but it's about $39,000.
What? And then annual fees, right?
Oh yeah, well yeah, just that little $13 fee here and there or whatever. But yeah, but then you can go and you can put in, Maloney.org or Maloney.net or whatever, and hey, we'll give it to you for a year for $1 a month. So I mean, it's just kind of odd. Why couldn't I get Maloney.com? But somebody went and bought it up because they thought they were going to make a payday on it one day.
Good
well,
grief.
I can kind of answer your question there, Rodney. Is because that's actually how I got started with my business. It's actually how I started making money for IT. Is I started buying up domain names and stuff that had gone bust or aren't being used, and buying them up really cheaply, and then building a basic website on there, getting a few viewers and getting a few bits of traffic through the website, and then selling the domain name.
I know one that you're not going to get. Rodney.com.
But know that I want it. He gets no respect after all.
No respect.
With a name like Rodney, I get no respect.
Respect?
But
What's respect?
I can do my first and last name.com. I'm considering that. I don't know what I'd do yet.
I don't know what respect is. I'm sorry.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I didn't hear what he said.
I said I don't know what respect is.
Oh yeah.
being a cop, we never get respect.
Right.
Oh, that's true. It's kind of interesting. Franklin's seat is like floating in the clouds.
No.
So it kind of tells you where we're at in this landing process, right?
Yeah.
Are we landing? Are we taxiing? I thought we were.
I think we're in that home stretch.
Yeah.
Cause I've already my rant's done. That was a lot longer rant than 5 minutes, so I'm done. I'm happy.
I've had two, so I've more than used my time.
So when
I
Franklin
think
gets
mine
back,
was a
it's his
little
rant.
bit longer, but I had to say something.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That's what I say. I had to say something because it was weighing on me.
Oh, about yeah, absolutely. I don't know why. Yeah,
You
you
owe
know,
us no explanations on that one.
I mean, we're here as like a sounding board, or I don't know, if sounding board's not the right word for it. Whatever that might be, we're here for you.
Support
You know,
forum.
yeah, there you go. There. Yeah, I watched too much um, uh, Big Bang Theory. They always talk about Sheldon's always there.
Yeah, and everyone wants to what was it? Oh yeah, punch him.
Yeah.
Right.
Our good friend overmodulating Dave.
Right.
Hey, Batable
He-
Dark.
Dave from Bodark. He has a tractor like this one in this video.
Yeah.
He just got it this last summer.
I thought it was funny when you were talking about the Welker Farms.
Yeah.
Me and B play that farm simulator, and they just so happen to incorporate Welker Farms. So I know that
You know about those
terrain
guys.
also well.
Yeah.
We need to get back into that, Rodney.
You
Yeah, I know we do.
if you know Leg Arms, the brother, he broke his arm this last week. And it was a hitch from one of those big bud tractors. It fell on his arm and crushed the bone.
Oh.
Oh.
He's not a happy boy right now. I'm going to tell you right now. He didn't look good, but and honestly, it was a mistake that any of us would have made. He's working beside this long. It's a 3x6 steel, probably 10 feet long, and it fell, and he reached to grab it, and it just boom. It's that heavy. So
Yeah, I think when it's something that big and that heavy, just let it fall.
right. Well, I mean, that's not your first instinct, though, is
No, it's not.
try
it's
to grab
catch
it. But
Oh yeah, you just got to try and fight against that instinct.
Yeah.
Because believe me, watching a 2,500 pound gun safe start to go over, yeah, your first instinct is not just to stand back and just let it go over. You want to try to catch it, but you shouldn't.
run. So we're down to the Franklin rant.
Yeah, and Franklin doesn't really have a rant tonight other than to say that if Rodney wants to be truly like Sheldon, where is our hot beverage?
Yeah, Rodney.
No offer. No offer at all. And that is the convention that when someone is in pain and sorrow,
Just look at
you
Rodney's
offer
face
them
right
a
now.
hot beverage.
Rodney.com.
Rodney.com.
Um,
in
ran
honor
about.
of
I don't
Iowa,
know.
while he's thinking of his rant, Steve, share my screen.
I hear you laughing back there.
I wanted so badly to buy that.
I did too, but
It's
man,
way
he wanted a
outside my
lot of
budget.
money for it.
Feed me, Seymour.
That is made out of copper. And
Wow.
it's gentleman at the Amana Colonies has got a shop there, and that was great.
His shop
Guys,
is like right
the
right there in the area that got damaged in the storm. So hopefully he got it all inside before the storm hit. The building
Hopefully so.
was an old brick gas station, and I don't think that thing could have blown down a hurricane.
you guys should see the picture that B shared with me. He bought basically a tow truck that looks like Mater. That I mean, he has it. Here, I'll find
Stored
it.
in my yard at the moment.
We've got one
Huh?
here in town. When
Y-
when
you
you-
ended up selling that, didn't you?
No, that's what I just said. It's stored in my yard at the moment.
Oh, it's still in your yard.
when you come to visit, I can take you to the original tow meter and the fire truck. That is not very far from here, just in Galena, Kansas.
I should bring the replica mater to meet the real one.
The real one. Yep.
It'd be kind of like the real universe Captain Kirk meeting the mirror universe Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
So I heard about this thing. If we're all in a group doing something and somebody yells Shatner, you're supposed to, whatever you're doing, you're supposed to over dramatically do it.
Hold on. Let me do something here.
So
This is going to be a little experiment.
the next time we're doing a mini tech night or whatever,
Where did I put it? Come on, where did I put it?
I
Trying to find that picture.
Apparently, you needed to add me on the last one.
boy, the
Oh,
other
there it
night,
is.
mini tech night. Oh, I knew exactly when Advil wore off.
Ow.
I was doing fine, and then suddenly, this tooth problem I got just went. Oh no, you're not. you're gonna do bad. You're not gonna feel good.
It's like, this is not going to work well for you.
Yeah.
So this would be as if William Shatner was reading the hazardous weather outlook. This hazardous weather outlook is for portions of the Missouri, Ozarks, and extreme southeast Kansas.
Oh boy.
Tortured you enough there.
You know, Rodney, I've got my mixer up and running. There's gonna be more sound effects. Also,
Yeah, but
Ronnie,
maybe he's a
go
bit quicker.
into transitions
Oh, yeah.
on OBS, scene transitions, and check out the Luma wipes.
Okay.
They are very cool. Like, watch the screen.
I would do it again. I wasn't watching. I'm just trying to find the tomato picture.
No.
It's like a tornado.
I think you'll be
Oh,
there
oh.
for a while. We conversate too much.
I'll find it.
I already found it.
I've got one of my own somewhere in here.
This The stinger one is cool, and I've got to create some cool stingers, and I haven't got them implemented in this yet.
Hmm.
I did it on another computer, and I haven't got it in here. But the mixer is okay. I'm not going to say it's great, but it's okay.
I found it. Now I just gotta get it full screen. Okay, this is the picture that he sent me. I'll have to share it here.
It's actually done really well.
Hold on, I'll have to create something.
Excuse me. Couldn't quite get to that mute button quick enough.
It's right. If I didn't mute mine half of the time, I think my kids would blow your eardrums out.
That's what kids are supposed to do.
The other day, I was watching an episode of Concentration when Alex Trebek hosted it, and there was this lady who was on, and she was talking about her grandkids, and Alex was saying that he'd made this observation before. He said grandkids are God's reward for not having killed your own.
That's believable.
Yeah.
So that's the picture he shared with me, and he.
Cool.
You say you still have it?
Yeah, it's still at the yard.
Whiskey 0 Echo Bravo Echo. The time is 11 p.m.
There you are.
The weather is rainy, and the temperature is -5 Celsius. No, I'm sorry. That's would have been if we were listening to another local repeater.
You know what we ought to do? We ought to see if we can tie into some British repeaters and just kind of listen in.
Oh, you could do that through. Well, actually, I
Broadcastify?
don't know. Can you do it through Broadcastify? I know I can do it off of the scanner app that I have on my phone, but that's not just solely Broadcastify. Most of the feeds are through Broadcastify, but it gets feeds through a couple other different sources too.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the one. Ha! That's here in town. Although I went by there the other day and I don't think I saw it.
Oh.
Yeah,
That
that's not the
inside.
original, but that is in town here.
Did you say the original's in Galena, Kansas?
Yes.
Looks awesome though.
I had to do some digging to find it.
Yeah, that was back in
Last year, or
July
2018.
9th of 2019.
This one was the other one. I think was also in July, but I think it was a different trip. And I was looking for it.
Anything pre-March 2020 might as well have been like,
Was that
25
the
years
one-
ago.
Was that the one where we went to see Big Brutus?
What, that? Oh, you mean in Galena?
Yeah.
Uh,
Was that the trip home?
I think it was. Probably the only hot, warm part of that whole trip. Everything else was just wet.
Or if we want to keep a semi-William Shatner theme going, you could say it was the voyage home.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Ugh.
I don't know if I have that on this computer.
At least it wasn't the Final Frontier. It's the sucky one. It was also the one that was directed by Shatner.
Long before I learned how to get things set up on my camera to get the shots right. I had just gotten the camera. There he
There he
is.
is.
Oh, cool.
Now, I'm
That's
not going to say that they've made those up a bit because they found them at that place in Galena, Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep, that's the
That's really
original
cool.
right there.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Get your kicks on Route 66.
Dead gum.
Now,
No. I've not seen any of the car movies, but you have to tell me at least at one point, Mater has to say, "Get her done."
get her done.
Well, that's what
We're gonna get a
actually
copyright strike on us for just saying
I
it.
know.
that's what I actually did. I put a speaker, one of the loudspeakers,
Mhm.
underneath the front, and I've just programmed all sorts of Mater voices into it. So when you're driving along, the car actually talks.
So, where's it at? Come on.
See, I didn't think about that about a copyright strike. So now
So,
Rodney gets to tell me, "Here's my sign."
this bridge
There's another
is
copyright strike.
this bridge is on a stretch of Route 66 that is separate from all the rest because
Mhm.
it is one of the original stretches of Route 66.
Oh, okay.
Um, but they have maintained the bridge.
Nice.
So it's really cool. You have to go a little bit out of your way to get to it. Bella had to have her photo shoot, so without revealing the license plate, which I don't have anymore. I got new tags, but
Cool.
yeah, that was a fun trip. And that's the view. I bet that's kind of dry right now.
Oh, probably. I did notice, and I was going to mention it earlier, and I completely forgot. I noticed at the end of the National Weather Service model predictions for winter for the dryness, our nice little corner of southwest Missouri was consistent or worse.
You didn't get to see the Weather Service the other day when they did their
I didn't.
Their- thing, and they talked about that.
I got
and
signed
their
up for the other
predictions.
ones, but not. I missed that one.
You missed that one. Yeah, they talked about that on there and what they were predicting, and for drought conditions, it's pretty dire.
Yeah.
You know, I like a good winter. Let's get some soupy, wet snow going, and it doesn't sound like we're gonna get it. So
I don't mind a few days of 3 to 6 inches of snow, just as long as there's not any or hardly any ice. Maybe just enough to coat the trees in a nice little glistening, but definitely none on the road or anything like that. Nothing weighing down the power lines.
I'm going to block you a minute.
okay.
That one was in Springfield.
What is that?
That's a B-17.
Oh, cool.
That's a big airplane.
Yeah.
Now the thing
Any
about
of the bombers are.
there was other aircraft there, but not flying.
Now,
And of
was
course, then there was the bird watching.
the silver one, was that a P-51? Ah, You're using the British version of the word bird.
Bird watching. Sorry, I just ran across that.
I can't remember. The planes that they used in the Doolittle raid, were those B-17s or B-29s?
B-25, Mitchell,
25, okay.
right? Twin engine. Oh, and back when COVID was first a thing, actually it wasn't, but we can do the
Okay, I guess I've developed a slight, mild little rant. It will only take a few minutes. Ah, yes.
remember that.
Right before COVID came to Missouri.
That was a good wedding present, wasn't it?
Yes.
So I guess if I'm going to have any kind of a rant this evening, my rant is I am yet sad again about something coming to an end. Although, if you believe the rumor mill, it's not coming to an actual end. They're probably going to do more. I have finally, in the 5 or 6 times that I've started the series, I am very close to the end of Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Oh.
I am on season 7, which was the one that they premiered back in February. I think I'm on episode 5 or 6 now, and there's only 12 or 13 episodes. Whenever it was on Netflix, I've tried to watch it 3 or 4 different times, and I never got past about halfway through. And this time on Disney Plus, I've not done it all at once, but I've stuck with it fairly consistently. Last night I started season 7, and I watched a few more episodes today, and I'm kind of a little sad that it's going to be at the end, but they're talking about either doing a season 8 or possibly doing a spin-off series of it. So I'm sure in one fashion or another it will continue, and it's been pretty popular. It's like everything that's came since the prequels, Rogue One, the Clone Wars, have been 2 of the most popular things that's came out of Star Wars since the prequels. So I'm sure. Well, and then the third thing I was thinking, there's a third thing. Why am I missing this? Would have obviously be the Mandalorian. If anyone's watched that, it's pretty darn good. I'm excited about season 2 that's gonna be uploaded on the 30th. I'm really excited because one of my favorite characters, who was originated in the Clone Wars and is actually a fan favorite, is former Jedi Padawan by the name of Ahsoka Tano, who was Anakin's apprentice until she left the Jedi Order. She got her own book, and it was confirmed pretty early when rumors started coming out for The Mandalorian that she would be in season 2. And she is. And I think Disney finally confirmed that they're going to have Rosario Dawson play Ahsoka. So that'll be pretty interesting. But like I said, kind of a little sad it's coming to an end, but it'll continue on probably some way. So that's the best I can do for a rant tonight.
Well, with that, I think it's about time for us to call it a night on the live stream.
Yeah.
We've had some pretty good stuff tonight.
We did.
Mhm.
We really did. So we want to thank you for flying Jungle Chasers Air, and letting us come into your or for seating with us tonight and going along on the digital ride. We hope we provided some education for you. We hope that we entertained you, and most of all, we thank you very much. And if you liked the content, if you like us, like, share, uh, we'd love to see you back again. 73 from Katie's Zero AEL.
And this is Franklin KD0RSJ. I guess you could say your flight attendant for this voyage. Hope that everyone enjoyed it. Hope that the peanuts were to everyone's liking. If you did get the meal, hopefully you did not eat the fish. And just we'll do it again next week. So 73, or as we flight attendants like to say, bye-bye.
Well, I guess I'm your other flight attendant. So if I could give you a word of warning, if you fly with us again, make sure you bring a parachute. Um, Other than that, on a serious note, if you are watching, we do appreciate you joining us. And, just to amplify what Patty is saying, if we are bringing anything to you, if you could, if anything, just give us a share, like, and of course, subscribe. We would love to get 50 subscribers by the end of the year. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell somebody who wants to know a little bit about ham radio and weather. Surely we can appeal to them in some shape or form. Until then, we'll see you guys next week in this 73 from K0FZ.
Go ahead, Karen.
And I'll be your flight marshal today, I'm guessing. That was my job.
Yeah.
And
Is there-
the couple of people that I detained on suspicion of all sorts of people, well, unfortunately, they'll just have to wait until the next flight to see what happens to them. So this will be me signing off, saying goodbye.
And this is Steve, KA0SPM. Please like and subscribe. If you've happened to catch this after the fact, it helps us a bunch. And we are going through big changes with everyone's technical side of things, and I am happy to report, as the flight engineer, we didn't have any major engine failures tonight. So
Wait, I thought you were the pilot.
either way,
I thought he
Same
was.
difference.
it's kind of a small plane, so I got to
Who
do
is
both.
flying this craft?
The pilot jumped out of the parachute, man.
To quote Ron White, hey, we lost some oil pressure over here.
But anyway,
That's what the sirens were.
thanks guys for being here and putting up with us, and we'll catch you next week. And have a great night. This is KA0SPM, and we're signing off.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.